Top 10 reasons to buy an electric vehicle. Number 1, money. I get frustrated when gas prices go up and all of us have no choice but to pay the extortion fee. I mean, you literally do not have a choice. You either pay the high price for gas or don't go to work and don't run your errands. Like me, I am sure you have always hated this situation and would love a way around the OPEC shakedown. I own a Chevy Volt. Having owned an electric vehicle for over 2 years now, I can say that definitively I am putting more of my money in my pocket and less to the Saudi Arabia-led OPEC oil cartel. I used to pay $200 per month in gas, but now the same amount of driving only costs me about $60 in electricity. If you think about fuel in miles per dollar instead of miles per gallon, you can get a clearer picture of the cost comparison between gas cars and electric cars. The math is simple. Let's compare my Chevy Volt, which has 250 pounds of torque, with an equivalent gas car also with 250 pounds of torque, like our other car, an Audi A4. These cars are similar in 0 to 60 speed and power. Real world driving of our Audi, we average 20 miles per gallon. You then divide the average price of a gallon of gas by your miles per gallon to calculate the dollar per mile value. For the Audi, that equals 17 cents per mile. Now that doesn't seem like much at first, but when you multiply that by 12,000 miles, which is the average lease term per year, you pay $2,040 per year for gas, which looks like this. Compare that to the Chevy Volt, which I get about 2.5 miles per kilowatt. Yeah, I know it took me a little bit of time to start thinking in kilowatts, but it's easy once you get used to it. Overnight electric charging rates average about 18 cents per kilowatt, so that breaks down to 7.2 cents per mile. And when you multiply that 7.2 cents per mile times the same 12,000 miles per year, you get $864 in electric fuel costs. But an electric vehicle costs so much more, right? When trying to compare the cost of the Chevy Volt, people often compare it to the Toyota Prius. The problem with that is the Prius has 105 pounds of torque, whereas the Volt has 273 pounds of torque, almost 3 times the power. So if you're going to compare the Volt, you need to compare it to cars that have close to the same power like the Audi A4, BMW 3 Series, or Mercedes CLA. All of these cars have similar power and are similar in price. However, federal tax credit took off $7,500 and California sent me a check for $1,500. So my net cost for my Volt was $23,000. That is Toyota Prius and Honda Accord territory. But those cars have half the power and cost twice as much to fuel. Number 2, fun. Think all the way back to 1973. We Americans drove huge gas-guzzling powerful cars. That was until Saudi Arabia forcefully cut back their oil supply to intentionally cause damage to our economy. In response, we then started purchasing flimsy little cars from Japan that got great gas mileage but were tiny, powerless pieces of junk. So we compromised. We let the size of our cars and the power of their engines get smaller and smaller until we are basically left with this. And that doesn't look fun. But that is only because we are creating cars that try to use the least amount of gas as possible, like the Prius or Smart Car. I think people assume that when they buy an electric vehicle, they have to go through the same compromising logic that they do with gas cars, where you have to pick beefy, powerful, fun, or tiny, slow, but great on gas. Except that is not how it is with electric vehicles. Electric vehicles are not gas sippers. They are using a completely different kind of fuel called electricity. Gas engines have to wind up, shift gears, wind up again, shift gears again, and so on. They can eventually create a lot of power, but it takes them forever to do so. Electric motors, on the other hand, have immediate response and take off like a jet plane or a roller coaster. The areas in yellow are at the top of the gears right before you have to shift. These areas are where a gas car can create more power than an electric car. However, the areas in purple show where the electric car will outperform the gas car. Take note of this large purple area in the beginning to show the difference in acceleration. With a gas car, you press on the accelerator and nothing happens. The motor and transmission have to figure out what gear and RPM they want to be in before they accelerate. Then the motor has to wind up and eventually you have power. I timed it. It takes 4.5 seconds. With an EV, you press the accelerator and you have instant power. I like having immediate power when pulling into traffic or passing cars. An electric vehicle has immediate power, which looks like this. Truly having fun with your car is between 0 and 60 miles per hour, which is the area that EVs blow away their gas equivalent. I notice that I am having a lot more fun flying around town because of the immediate response and acceleration, plus I'm not worried about wasting money. The focus is saving money and having fun. So toss that sad gas car and start having fun again. Number 3, be modern. We are living in a great transitional time. The last time fuel used to power human transportation changed was around 1900, when we went from feeding horses hay to putting gas in horseless carriages. Now, gas is on the way out, and electricity is our new modern fuel. Oil was the main source of energy during the industrial age, and we need to give it our gratitude for it helping our country to become the superpower it is. But that does not mean that we stay stuck in a rut with a wasteful and old technology. Electric motors have always been superior to gas piston engines, but were never a viable means of transportation because batteries were large and heavy. That was, however, until the advent of the lithium-ion battery. Now, electric cars have the ability to be our main form of transportation. Think of it like a car evolution. First was a horse-drawn carriage, then gas engines made the stage with the Ford Model T, then hybrids like the Prius, which are basically a gas car with regenerative braking, then plug-in hybrids like the Audi e-tron, which still depends on a gas drivetrain. Then we evolved to electric drive with an onboard gas engine generator like the Chevy Volt. And as our electric infrastructure increases, our gas engines will become smaller and smaller until we no longer need them, and everyone will enjoy pure electric vehicles. Living in San Diego, I think the Chevy Volt is the best EV out there because it reflects our current transportation infrastructure being a mix of gas stations and electric chargers. My Volt goes 40 miles per day on electricity, which is just about what I need every day, and then I charge at night. On some days, I will get a change of plans that require me to go further, so I push a button and it runs on gas. Think of it like a clean, low-cost fuel first and a dirty, high-cost fuel as backup. In the end, I run 90% electric and 10% gas. I think the dual fuel design is something almost anyone can use, plus I never have to worry about range anxiety. For me, buying a gas car is like being hustled into paying top dollar for something old. Look back when we were converting from horse-drawn carriages to gas cars. Would you pay top dollar for a horse-drawn carriage, even if it had a backup camera and a USB plug? The answer is no, because it is an old technology. It's like buying a new old car. Why not buy a new car? So be modern. Number 4, be wealthy. With gas cars, you fill up once a week, so you need a car that will get 300 miles per tank, which equals about 40 miles per day. But an EV charges nightly while you sleep, so why do you need more than 40 miles of range per day? Why hold off on buying an EV until they come out with a large battery that will get 300 miles per charge? That would be like driving a gas car with a 100-gallon gas tank. It's kind of overkill once you understand how little you ever go past 40 miles in one day. Also, think about it another way. In poor countries, people walk to the local water well to get their week's worth of water. But in wealthy countries, our water comes from the taps in our home. That same rationale applies to energy. The poor have to go to gas stations or local energy well to get their week's worth of transportation energy. But EV drivers get their transportation energy daily from the taps in our home. For me, driving an electric vehicle is a symbol of living in a wealthy, modern country. Number 5, inflation. This has a little more to do with owning solar panels in conjunction with owning an electric vehicle. When you own an EV combined with solar panel system, you lock in your transportation fuel costs for the next 30 years. Ask yourself what a gallon of gas cost you 30 years ago. It was 79 cents. So by looking in the past, we can predict the future. That would project the price of gas to be $14.50 30 years from now. And that would be $8,800 per year just in gas. My solar array will produce on average around 14 kilowatts per day for the next 30 years, which is about what I need for my daily driving. My solar investment was $12,000 after the tax credits. So take the $12,000 and divide that by 30 years. That equals 3 cents per mile or $400 per year. And in 30 years, it will still be only $400 per year because I locked in my transportation fuel price at a 2016 value. Referencing the last 30 years, the price of gas has increased almost 6% per year. At first you may think these numbers are ridiculous, but currently paying $2,000 a year for gas would have looked ridiculous 30 years ago when it was 1/4 the cost. So it's not beyond reason for it to be 4 times the price 30 years from now. So when the naysayers say that EV plus solar is too expensive, let them know about locking in your dollar to avoid inflation. Number 6, return on investment. After purchasing a house, owning a rental property, and maximizing 401k contributions, purchasing an electric vehicle was the next best return on investment for our personal finances. I think the EV plus solar panel combo is one of the few great investments available to the middle class today. When you buy a solar array, it is like owning your own gas station when you also own an electric vehicle. I took the $200 per month I was spending on gas and put that towards paying off the solar panels. This will take only 5 years for the gas savings to pay off the panels. After that, it's like free gas for the next 25 years. And that is what I would call a great return on investment. But again, don't take my word for it. Do the math yourself and factor in the cost of gas when you shop for your next vehicle. Make sure to add the increase in gas prices and the loss of your purchasing power due to inflation. Number 7, be prepared. I always see very passionate pro-American people buying big trucks to show how pro-America and prepared they are. This seems like a good idea at first, but these large trucks all have the same Achilles heel. What happens if the gas stops flowing? I know. They will say America can produce all of its own fuel and blah, blah, blah. The problem with that is that we are dependent on international trade for our fuel, food, and products. Should Saudi Arabia and friends stop producing oil, our society would come to a screeching halt. Plus, we would probably be already engaged in war, so the domestic fuel we are producing would be allocated for military and state-level transportation, meaning there will not be fuel for your big truck. Number 8, national security. In January of 2014, the Saudi Arabia-led OPEC oil cartel intentionally oversupplied the world with oil so they could force the U.S. oil industry to collapse. Our oil industry shrank, smaller oil companies went bankrupt, oil workers lost their jobs, and our stock market plunged. Now, I don't know about you, but for me, the meaning of American freedom is that no other country, religion, or entity will control how we live. So why is it that we allow the Middle East to be able to make energy decisions that can affect our economy? Freedom in America is only here because we have always outsmarted our adversaries with inventions like rifling, the assembly line, airplanes, the atomic bomb, computers, and the internet. So now we have our newest invention to promote American ingenuity and independence: electric vehicles. Remember, poor countries barely have an electric grid. Only wealthy countries can use electric vehicles to avoid the high cost of rising global gas prices. My Volt costs about the same as the average gas car. It has more power. no range anxiety, and I can plug it in almost anywhere. So there is no compromises with owning a Chevy Volt. If our big three car companies put the Volt's drive system in all of their cars and trucks, then all of us could use 90% less gas. We could then sell our surplus oil to the rest of the world and in turn make us rich. And also deflate the power and influence of oil-rich countries. Number 9, be in charge. People sometimes get confused when it comes to our government and where power truly exists. No matter who our president is or what party they come from, they are not king of the world and cannot change anything major without Congress, the Supreme Court, workers' unions, and all other countries that we share commerce with agreeing. However, the power of industrial capitalism is bigger than any one country or one president. But there is one American president who can change everything. George Washington. Remember, you vote with your dollar every day. Every time you purchase a t-shirt that says Made in China, you are effectively saying, yes, I vote for more shirts to be imported from China and less from American industry. Every time you fill up your gas tank, you say, yes, I vote for our country to be beholden to the international oil cartel. But when you drive an EV, your transportation payments go to your local energy company, and you are effectively saying, I vote for America. You, the consumer, are truly in charge by how you vote with your daily dollar purchase. Number 10, patriotism. I am driving an American car, running on American electricity. I'm keeping my American transportation dollars in our American communities. This helps create American jobs and American prosperity. So how about you? What is stopping you? The most common concern I always hear about is the fear of battery replacement. The Chevy Volt has an 8-year, 100,000-mile warranty on the battery. Plus, look at how quickly the price of battery packs have come down. I'm not worried about the cost of a battery pack 8 years from now. It will be ridiculously cheap. In my opinion, we are close to the perfect supply and demand equilibrium point to buy an electric vehicle. Once demand exceeds supply, the tax credits and incentives will go away. EV prices will quickly go up, and you will be stuck with a gas car having to pay high gas prices. The transition to an electric vehicle plus solar for me was easy and absolutely zero additional out-of-pocket expense. For starters, get a Chevy Volt or at minimum a plug-in electric vehicle with at least 40 miles of electric range. Once you see how easy it is to live without gas, then take the next step to a full electric vehicle. Down the road, get solar and pay for it with your gas savings. But in the end, don't let this opportunity pass you by. There has never been a better time to buy an electric vehicle than right now.